Today is another step forward in clearing the decks in relation to the true state of the budget. On coming to government, my colleagues and I were advised that there were 96 announced but unlegislated tax and superannuation initiatives left behind by the previous government. Today, I'm announcing that we are dealing with this backlog of 96. 4 of the 96 have been dealt with in our mining tax and carbon tax repeal packages. Of the remaining 92, the coalition government is going to definitely proceed with 18. These 18 initiatives provide $10.9 billion in total to the budget. Some of these that we are proceeding with, such as the claims in relation to member accounts and superannuation, we don't like. But it's $815 million of revenue that we can't walk away from. But that allows us to proceed with other initiatives, such as allowing farmers to claim more off-farm income during difficult times. Of the 92 initiatives, 3 will proceed with amendment. That includes changes to thin capitalisation rules, and contrary to reports this morning, we are still proceeding with changes to thin capitalisation rules, and obviously we are greatly concerned about transfer pricing, and that is part of our G20 agenda next year as the chair of the G20. But we are making amendments to deliver a more realistic figure of $890 million in revenue. And in particular, we do not want to disadvantage Australian companies that want to expand offshore. And it is particularly important at this moment, with the Australian dollar where it's at, that Australian companies look to expand offshore, and we want to encourage that. And the proposal as drafted would have been prohibitive in that regard. Of the 92, we are definitely not proceeding with 7 initiatives. The first initiative is the one that we campaigned loudly against during the course of the federal election, which was changes to the fringe benefits tax rules on motor vehicles. We fully funded that during the election campaign, not proceeding with that initiative. I declare today that the car industry is back open in Australia, and it is back open because we are not proceeding with Labor's flawed proposal to change the rules on FBT for motor vehicles. Secondly, we are changing the rules. We are not proceeding with the changes to the rules in relation to superannuation. That was a $313 million initiative announced by the government at budget time. It was undeliverable. Undeliverable. The fact is that it was nigh impossible for the private sector to be able to properly identify who was responsible for that liability and how it would be assessed. And the third significant initiative we are not proceeding with is the cap on self-education related expenses, which was intended to raise $266.7 million over the forward estimates. Let me give you some of the facts. 639,000 taxpayers claim self-education expenses. Of those, 174,000 taxpayers claim expenses of more than $2,000. Of the 174,000 taxpayers affected by Labor's cap on self-education, 81% earn less than $80,000 a year. They are the people who are trying to invest in their own education to get ahead. It was flawed policy with no motivation other than a simple headline. And the government recognised that when, between the course of the budget and the election campaign, they announced a delay. They would never have done it because they would have been clubbed by the reality that people should be investing in their own education. That's how we improve productivity. Of the 92 initiatives, 64 further initiatives are going to be consulted on by my colleague, the Assistant Treasurer, we have a disposition not to proceed with those 64 further initiatives. But a decision will be made by the 1st of December this year, and the final outcome will be put into the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook statement to be released by Christmas. Some of these initiatives that we do not want to proceed with and will not proceed with date back to 2001. Some of them were announced in 2001, but the great bulk of them, 71 of the initiatives, had not been legislated by Labor, had been announced and not legislated by Labor before they'd even delivered the last budget. So this is a legacy of laziness that has left taxpayers confused. I say for anyone who has complied with an announced tax change that the government will not proceed with, we will give you a tax refund. For anyone who has self-assessed with an announced tax change that the government will not proceed with, we will legislate to ensure that you have no liability. This package overall proceeds with $12 billion of revenue initiatives that have not been legislated by our predecessors. It makes $700 million of amendments. It does not proceed with $2.4 billion of initiatives. So as you can see, so many of the unresolved tax and super initiatives raised very little tax but added a massive compliance burden to the Australian economy. The 1st of December is the deadline to deal with this. And for those matters that remain unresolved, the Assistant Treasurer will consult, but we are drawing a line in the sand. You cannot go forward with a complicated, unresolved taxation system if you want to give business and consumers the best hope that what they work hard to achieve will be achieved. So today we are resolving this emphatically, which allows us to deliver the mid-year and economic fiscal outlook. I say finally, the MyEFO document we released before Christmas will show the Australian people the problem that we've inherited, and the budget to be delivered next year will deliver the solution.